YouTube and starts streaming, and everyone gets a notification. And
it's not obvious feature, it's the Zoom feature, right? You go to your Zoom account.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Not even the Zoom account. You're literally just in the Zoom settings, the in meeting options, right? So once you've got Zoom going, down the bottom, there's an option to live stream within the meeting itself. They are actually adding an ability to stream to multiple locations at once. Zoom is doing that. It's going to require a Zoom app, and we're not quite sure how we will be able to interface with that with Obvio. So that might be a problem for us, but it's a plan that we want to be able to support that. So they've sort of created an option where you could stream to multiple locations at once. Cool. So that's all working now. And good morning, Blue. And now I'll come back to my questions. The first one I've got here is from Melanie. Okay. Can Blue please show how to set up attendees with ActiveCampaign? Also, I use ClickFunnels for sales for my 3-day. Can I use Obvio for SMS messages? And what are the rules again? Thanks. So there was several messages there, I think, and I think that she was actually saying that she may not be able to make it, but that's a good example of why we do that live stream setup, so that you can go back over that YouTube live stream and catch the answer. Do you want to dive into that now, Blue, or should we do something else?
Yeah, sure. Am I unmuted? I am unmuted. Look at me go.
Well, we can hear you.
Okay, so let me find, give me 1 second. Let me find an event that we can test this with to set it up.
While you're doing that, we can just tackle the Obvio for SMS. So yes, it's an option. It's a beta option at the moment, or and you need to request that. So you need to request broadcast if you haven't got already that, which is emails, and then SMS is an extra add-on for that. That we're still kind of doing some testing and finishing off sort of the final release of that. So it is possible, which obviously means that you need to enter phone numbers in, which you may see now in the attendees editor or the viewer. When you're in the attendees part, you'll see there's a phone number field there, and you can also import a phone number when you're doing like a CSV import. And so as long as you have a mobile, a cell phone number in there, then you're able to broadcast out to those.
Yeah, and the cost of SMS is, did you say that?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so there's a fee associated with SMS. So each SMS broadcast that you send has a base cost of $1, and then it costs 2 cents per US, or actually per North American phone number, or 10 cents for any phone number outside of North America. If you're using ActiveCampaign or one of the integrations, all of the integrations have been updated to automatically import the phone number field into Obvio. If you're using Zapier, the latest version of Zapier has the ability to import a phone number. If you're importing a file, like a CSV file, you can now add a phone number column. Where that phone number column is doesn't actually matter. It can be anywhere in the file, and it'll work. Nancy, was 2 cents for domestic, 10 cents for international. And I'll say domestic plus Canada. And then if you're adding attendees manually, you can also add phone numbers in the actual attendee field. So the ActiveCampaign integration, very much like the rest of our integrations, allows you to automatically import attendees from ActiveCampaign based on tags in ActiveCampaign's specific case. So if you're in an event and you go to services and you happen to be an ActiveCampaign user, you'll see that there is this ActiveCampaign option now. You have Zapier, you have Keep, you have MailChimp, you have HubSpot, you have High Level, and now in addition to that, there is also ActiveCampaign. So ActiveCampaign, when you click on it for the first time, is, let's see if I can unlink that, is going to ask you for a developer, some developer information, which is a secret key and a URL. And to get that, you go to your ActiveCampaign account, you go to Settings, and then you go down to the developer option, and you'll see a URL and you'll see a key. And you essentially copy the URL and copy the key. And when you do that, you will then get a screen that looks like this. And I'm going to clear this. So there you go. And this screen, if you've watched us do integrations with any of the other systems, you'll recognize it looks very, very similar. You have a global tag or attendee import or delete tag that essentially every time an attendee has that tag added to it, they get automatically imported into ActiveCampaign. If you remove that tag from ActiveCampaign, they then get removed from Obvio. So essentially, it's their ticket into the Obvio event. Then you have the login URL, which is a field. You can create the field from within the Obvio user interface, but I'd recommend you do that from ActiveCampaign itself. And then you have action tags, which are our 3 default action tags. You can tag an attendee when they're created, when they check in, and when they sign the waiver. In addition to that, you can import additional custom fields from ActiveCampaign as groups. So if you want to import like city and state as an example into Obvio for some reason, you can do that, or any other piece of information that you happen to have inside of ActiveCampaign. So once you start typing in a tag, what you'll see is the system will do a search inside of ActiveCampaign to see what tags with the word AUG or with the letters AUG exist inside of your ActiveCampaign account. So in my case, I'm going to use this August 29th tag because this was a test that we did a while back. Then you go to the login field and do the same thing if you've already created the field. I have a login URL also, or sorry, a custom field also called August 29th. We usually recommend you include the word Obvio so it's easier to search, but that's not necessary. That's just kind of more of a best practices. So it's easy for you to find tags. But if you have a smaller account, that may not be a problem for you. Then again, we're going to do a created tag. We're going to do a checked in tag. And if you have the waiver step turned on, you may want to have a waiver signed tag. Now, once you've done all of that, you click Save. And at that point, ActiveCampaign and Obvio are now connected. However, what will happen is it will only import attendees who get the tag from this point forward. Meaning, if you already have a number of attendees in your ActiveCampaign account that already have the tag, you're going to want to do a manual import by clicking this Import Attendees button at the top of the ActiveCampaign integration page. Now, once you do, it'll tell you that this can take up to 30 minutes. It can actually take more or less, depending on how many attendees you're actually importing. But if I go to my Attendees tab, you'll notice that I already have 101 attendees who have been imported into ActiveCampaign. And if I go ahead and click, I don't think these guys have tags. But if we go and look these people up inside of Active Campaign in the contacts area, you would see that they would have an August 29th URL right there. So that's essentially how it works. And from this point forward, this event, anybody who has that tag applied, that August 29th tag applied, or AUG29, they will automatically be imported into Obvio, and their login URL will automatically be copied back into Active Campaign. Irina, go ahead.
When I did that, on that page, you said that you chose tags from your Active Campaign account, but I created it right in the Obvio. Is that correct, or did I do something wrong?
There's nothing wrong with that. You can create the tags. Like if you haven't created the tags in advance of doing the integration, you can create the tags in Active Campaign from Obvio. So what that does, so if we were to go here and I would say create new tag, and I would call this one September 20th and click create, that's going to create that tag in Active Campaign and select it as my import tag. So now if I go into Active Campaign and I go to tags, I should, in theory, if things are working the way they should be, if I do a search for September, you'll see a September 20th tag. There's also a little note that says that it's been generated by Obvio. So you can create the tags from within Obvio, or you can go to the tags area and call this one September 20th second try and click add tags. So you can also add your tags from Active Campaign. There's no real wrong way to do that. The only thing that I would say is if you are already tagging your attendees, like you did your Active Campaign setup before your Obvio setup, you don't need to create new tags. Just use the tags you already have in place.
I already created the first one. I created an Active Campaign, but then the lower ones, which is check in, create, specific to Obvio. That's what I did in Obvio. And my second question, what's the meaning of that? I mean, I understand it's through the, for the event, they do sign a waiver and so forth. But if it's a free challenge and they don't have the waiver, which I don't have a tag, but what about created and checked in? Can it be checked in without, what's the meaning?
Yes.
Password creation, that's created?
Yeah, no. So there's two reasons for it. And they both come down to automation. I'll answer the easy one first, which is the checked in tag is applied not at tech check, but when a attendee lands on the dashboard for the first time. From an Obvio perspective, we consider them as checked in. So if you have a free challenge and you don't have a password step and you don't have a waiver step and you don't have tech check, you just have the dashboard, the moment they click on that login URL and the dashboard loads, they'll get tagged in Active Campaign as having been checked in. Okay, so you can call that tag whatever you want, but the action of loading the dashboard for the first time is what considers them as checked in. That's number one. Number two, the tag for attendee created is applied to the contact record in Active Campaign at the same time that the login URL is applied to the contact record in Active Campaign. So the reason we have that created tag is so that if you happen to want to send an automated email that includes the login URL from Active Campaign, you can use that attendee created tag as a trigger to start a sequence to send that welcome email, right? Because otherwise, it takes a couple of minutes for Active Campaign to send the information to Obvio and for Obvio to then talk to Active Campaign. And you could put a delay timer, like you could say, don't send the welcome email for 5 minutes. because you don't want to send the welcome email that includes the login URL until the contact has the login URL, right? If you send the email right away, they'll get a blank login URL because Obvio and ActiveCampaign haven't talked to each other, right?
Mhm.
So you can set a timer, but that's dangerous because the timer may be right or may be wrong, right? So you use the tag of attendee created as the trigger to send that email, which gives you the certainty that when that email is sent, the login URL is present. So I'll say that that is an advanced automation move that you may or may not want to do. And if you're sending emails, like if you're sending a welcome email from Obvio instead of from ActiveCampaign, then you don't even need to worry about the attendee created tag. I will tell you half of the things that we do, half of the events that we do, we don't actually even apply the attendee created tag. So, and Marley asked a good question, which is this the same process for MailChimp? And the answer is yes. In fact, pretty much all 5 of the integrations that we have inside of Obvio all function essentially the same, right? There is a tag that is applied inside of the CRM. And then once that tag is applied, they're imported into Obvio. And then login URL or the magic link is copied to a custom field back in your CRM. The only one that's a little bit different is HubSpot. And that's because HubSpot doesn't have a tagging process. Instead of tags, HubSpot uses something called lists. So the list membership trigger is what is used in HubSpot instead of a tag application. But the rest of the process is the same.
Cool.
So hopefully that was helpful.
Great. Okay, so Irina's got a question. I've got an account at Adilo, Adilo.
Adilo.
Thank you. Well done. An alternative to Vimeo. When I post a link hosted on YouTube on the dashboard, it works fine. But when I post it with this, it says the media is not supported. So
I mean, I think either one of us can take this. I'll let you take it.
Okay. So there's 2 ways to embed video, and there's a video button in a blog post, and it is pre-configured to work with YouTube, Vimeo, and like Wistia. There's a couple of different ones that we've got that will generate an embed code automatically. That new service, or that service that we haven't built an integration for, simply means that you need to get the embed code yourself and place it in a HTML code. So I can show you an example, because your face looks a little blank as I'm explaining this. So I'll show you what I mean. So it's totally possible. It's just kind of like we've created a bit of a shortcut for some of the popular services. So I'm just getting the dashboard there, and I'll show you here. Okay. So I could go to, in fact, there was one that I already did. So what it sounds like you're doing is going here, insert media, and you're putting in the address of the video, and it's coming up with it's not supported. So as I say, YouTube, Vimeo, Wistia, a couple of those will all work fine. If it doesn't work and it says that media is not supported, on your platform, on the video platform that your hosting platform that you've got, there'll be an option to copy embed code. You can copy the embed code, and what you'll do is, instead of using the insert media, go to HTML, and then you're going to you'll place the code that'll be in here. And there'll be some, well, it's probably not script, but it'll be an iframe probably, and a bunch of code. It'll be a paragraph of code. And once you have that there, you press save changes, and then save the post, and the video will appear in your blog post.
That's easy. Thank you, Grant.
Of
I
course.
love it. I know how to embed. That's
Great.
next level already for me. I know.
And so the only other reason that we did those custom embeds is because we wanted to make sure that it was responsive, that it would work. And so the way that we were doing our embed codes were not fixed width and height, but they are responsive, and so it changes with the size of the dashboard. And so if you sometimes you have an option when you're copying the embed code, and it might say fixed size or responsive
It does.
size.
It does.
Okay.
I know it.
Look how excited you are.
I'm so happy that I know.
So hit the responsive, copy that responsive embed code, paste that, and then do some testing and make sure that it's working so that it works on mobile and it works on larger devices and things like that.
Can I just give you
Thank
a
you.
heads up? I know this is true with Wistia. I actually don't know if it's true with very many other services, but that HTML embed option inside of blog posts does not support embed codes that include scripts. So if you see inside of the embed code what I just put in the chat, or actually usually it would be something like this, like it would show script, and then it would show some stuff goes here, and then at the end it would close it like that. So if you see something like that inside of your embed code, you may have a problem, and just pop onto one of these calls and let us know, because there's workarounds to get that to work. So with Wistia as an example, we have to take the script part of the embed code and place it somewhere else. And it still works, but it's just a little trickier. And then also, I also know with Wistia, again, I'm just using Wistia as an example because it's the one that I'm aware of that has this problem. When you go to embed or get an embed code, they have different versions of the embed code, and you can select a version of the embed code that doesn't contain that script, which then also solves the problem. So just take a look at that embed code. You may just want to just copy and paste it like Grant said from the beginning, and if it works, then don't worry about it. But if it doesn't work, yeah, if it doesn't work, it's going to come down to probably one of those script tags.
Okay.
Cool. Marley has a question. What is the difference and use of the login and sign up pages? Do I enable both?
Well, one can be enabled or disabled, and the other one can't. So the login page, all events have. Most of your attendees, if you're sending an attendee the magic URL or the login link or login URL, then the attendee will never see the login page, but it still exists. The sign-up page is a way to get attendees signed up for the event for free. It should not be turned on if you have a paid event. But in Arena's case, as an example, where she's doing a free challenge, or in our case, last year when we did a free challenge, we turned on the sign-up page. And so if somebody wound up on the login page by accident, they could still click on the link to sign up. And it's just a simple first name, last name, email address sign up that automatically gets them into the attendee list in Obvio and allows them to get onto the dashboard really quickly without having to worry about any integration. But it's turned off by default because of the fact that if you have a paid event, you probably shouldn't turn it on. You want your attendees to pay for the event rather than sign up for free, because there isn't an option inside that sign up page to sign up at a fee, if that helps. Also, when you're looking at the login page, if you're just looking at it, the sign up text will appear there. But if you preview it up at the top, the little preview toggle, you'll notice that if the sign up page is disabled, the sign up text on the login page when you preview it goes away. So it's a little confusing, but we display it there in the editor so that you know that you can modify the text that says sign up to be whatever you want. And then when you preview it, you'll see how the attendees will actually see it based on whether or not the feature is on or off.
Okay, Tamara has a question. I have a project where I need to watermark shared content. I know I can do this in Zoom where I can put a small single watermark. Is there a way to get this through Obvio? This is specifically for the recordings, Tamara? Is that right?
Yeah, so I have a use case where I'm sharing content on a unreleased television show to a group of people who are a closed group. So we need to just have a way of watermarking it so that if it gets out, if they've screen captured it, it has it. And this is what Andrew Carlucci said that was the best way to do it in Zoom at the moment. But it's one of those things that's in, they're moving everything to the web portal to set things up. So I don't have any access through the meeting itself to do that.
How are you feeding video into Zoom?
Right now I'm sharing screen because my ATEM is not liking me at the moment with sound. I can't get the sound in.
The ATEM would solve your problem because the reality is, I'm trying to remember the watermark feature that you're talking about. Where does that? I know that's a custom feature, Grant, but is that just in the recording in the live stream or?
No, it's a screen share option as well, right? So when you screen share, it will show who it watermarks who is screen sharing at the time, and so it kind of overlays, or you can put custom watermarks and whatever over the screen shares.
The default is to it takes the username, like whoever it takes, like puts their email on it.
That's right.
So I can watermark it on my own. I can do my editor plaster something all over it. I think more than anything, I think that we really just want to have that protective barrier as a reminder for our attendees that they're not sharing content.
More so than you burning it in on the email on the video itself? Is that what?
So here's the thing. If I do it if it watermarks this way and someone screen captured it, it has their email on it. So now I know who has shared the content, not just shared content. So if I have something that's watermarked, someone captures it and they share it, that's anybody in the meeting, as opposed to a watermark that says who the person is who shared it. So that's why that's the benefit of that. It's a matter. If I screen captured my thing, it has my name on it. I go and share it. They're like, "Hey, Tamara, I saw content that got out on the internet has your name all over it." So it's not a foolproof system because it's, there's lots of ways for people to get around that if they really wanted to. This group, I don't think would, and it's just enough of a reminder that it's tagged to you, like your name's on.
Right.
Hey.
I know I ask all the questions.
No, it's good. It's good.
Ask all the production stupid questions.
I'm trying to think of I've got a couple of lanes I'm going down in my thinking, but yeah.
Do you know what this does? Allow hosts to override the watermark settings?
I haven't tested that, no. That may, if that brings it as an in-meeting option, then that would be perfect.
That's what I'm wondering. Yeah.
I think we might need to do a test on that. Otherwise, and was that when that was an account-wide thing
That
there,
was an
Blue,
account
or was
line.
it?
Yeah, that was an account settings. Well, I mean, it
This is
can be account set. It's a user setting, but you can set, we
okay.
can set it account wide.
Yeah. So when are you next wanting to use that feature?
I'm going to use it today, but
Okay.
but this will be potentially an ongoing meeting that I have. I'm trying to get them to move into Obvio. So it could be potentially an ongoing thing. So it would be for that particular thing. Anytime I use that, it would be there. Now I know why it's difficult is because it's like a shared account. So how do you make it in Obvio so that
Mhm.
it can go organization wide?
Yeah.
But perhaps I'm not the only person, or maybe I am the only person who needs this particular
Well,
use case.
I tell you,
Because as you know, I use Obvio in all of the ways that no one else does.
that's fine. If we find something like this where the default is off and there's an option for it to be turned on in an in-meeting option,
That would be
then
fantastic.
we're quite open to that, right?
Right.
It's only when now this is defaulted to on, or it's a account wide, that becomes
Exactly.
a bit more of a problem. However, even just in the meantime of us doing some testing, I'm just gonna have a look at so you've got a screening room, you've just got one
Yeah,
room
I
there.
literally threw it up yesterday, and I was actually, because I talked with Muddy, I was going to give this particular group kind of a backdoor entrance for this week, and then kind of build it out after. But I could do that differently because the other option I just got their NDA, so I can put that in a waiver. So maybe I will do it. Maybe I will do it this morning.
Well, you can do a test. I'm just having a look. I'm looking at your specific user.
Yeah, right now it's just me and the producer in there, and then for this one, I was going to have them sign up. This is it's internal for the most part, but we also are trying to figure out a long-term solution for this type of sharing. And Obvio is a perfect, like, they love that it feels closed and that it's, that we can track who comes in and who leaves.
Yeah.
Like, they love that. So this is a not intended use of Obvio that could potentially be a really great use of Obvio for us.
Yeah, sure.
And for
what's interesting, Grant, is I don't see that same setting. I mean, it kind of exists in the user, but I don't really see it in the same way that I do in account management.
So I can see it in the user setting, add watermark.
Right, but it doesn't allow it doesn't allow you to customize that.
Yeah, I've put some calls out to like Zoomy people too to see if they have better options. This is what Andy sent to me, and I was like, it doesn't work that way though. So I'm open to any and all suggestions, and again, I can wing it on today's, even though I don't want to.
So are you happy to have their email address embedded?
I'm fine if it's their email address embedded. I'm fine if it's just some other kind of watermark, at the moment, because I'm, this is kind of a last minute request. And I was like, maybe. It sounds good. I completely understand why they want it and need it. So it's just one of those crazy things.
Oh, I get it. So hold on. Sorry, I think I may have been confused. So the watermark that gets added is really only the name, and there isn't an option to do like a fancy watermark of some sort. It's just
I think that I feel that may be their intention. I could not figure out how to do that. I'm less I don't actually need a fancy watermark because I have an editor who can put a fancy watermark on it, right? I can put property of Netflix on it.
Mm-hmm.
I love actually originally I was like, oh, that's not going to work, Andy. And then when I looked into it, I was like, actually, that would exactly work, because the way I think it works is that it watermarks like my name on it and your name on it, whoever's viewing it. So if they were to do a screen scrape of or take their iPhone and put a picture on it, then it would have their name on it. So if it ended up on the internet somewhere, we could be like, hey, Blue, guess what? You've breached your NDA. I can tell because your name is on there. So what it
It's like
does
when I
seem to let you,
record the screen on a Delta aircraft, right? And it has Delta in the bottom corner. Yeah, same idea.
right,
I got it.
right.
So a snag on this could be that it requires authenticated meeting participants, and technically, our attendees are not authenticated, meaning that they need to be they need to be logged in to the local Zoom client,
Right, right,
in order for this to work, because
right.
then it knows that it is them and their email address, and that's what
Right.
gets watermarked on it. Our what we require is registration, and
Right.
and we're logging in as an attendee, but it's not authenticated.
Okay.
So I've turned it on for what it's worth. I've turned it on for you for your specific meeting. But
Cool.
I would expect that it will not work.
All right. Well,
that's going to be a problem.
Well, let's try it. I mean, but I could also say you need to log into your Zoom. I could tell them.
And then that wouldn't
it's not
work
going to matter
through
though, because it's not going
that
to work
wouldn't
through
work through
Obvio.
Obvio.
All right.
That
Well,
won't work through Obvio.
let's try it. If anyone thinks of a solution to this particular problem, it's potentially ongoing. It's potentially I'm going to have my editor watermark it today. And give me a watermarked copy. But ideally, like, it would be nice if I could do, and what I like about what they do is that it's a little tiny watermark, and it can be, you can change the opacity and stuff like that. Again, I don't imagine that many Obvio users need this per se. But for my use case, like, Obvio itself is so perfect to make sure that we can get people in and know who the links go to, and have, like, that works so well that I'd love it to work so that it could be something I can use company-wide potential. Yeah,
that makes sense. It's a dynamic watermark, and that's that is a tricky thing to do, and it makes sense that they are requiring the authenticated users. Otherwise, you could do a bogus email address.
Right. Exactly. It makes total sense.
But that's the trade-off, because all the work that we have done is to make our the whole workflow from the dashboard into Zoom both really secure and also really easy. And so and we're happy with the balance that we have of that at the moment, right? Because we don't need people to use passwords. They don't need to be logged into Zoom, but they have to come through the dashboard. They cannot enter that Zoom meeting via anything else, which relates to Irina's next question.
Thank you, guys.
No worries. Irina, you were saying about Grain.com is a video AI service. You've got all the wacky services you seem to find. That splits videos into nuggets. It works with Zoom. I need to enter the Zoom link for it to join Zoom and record the video. Can I get a fake attendee, a second email, and enter the magic link in the account on Grain.com? So no is the answer, because the way that bot would be trying to join the Zoom meeting would be without authentication, and it would not be. So the link that you would give it would be like our magic link, and it wouldn't recognize that, and it wouldn't know to follow that through to get into Zoom. So what it would be wanting is more of a join link, a standard Zoom join link, which has a meeting ID in it and potentially the password as well. And so it's one of those tricky ones where it's not, this lines back up when I was talking before about Zoom being able to live stream to multiple destinations, is a Zoom app, and we're still exploring how we can do sort of Zoom apps in the way that we run our events with Obvio. So there is an option that we're considering being able to turn on, and that is that Zoom has its own clips system, like and so within the recording options, there's a kind of a AI type thing that tries to try to work out what was key moments within the recording, and it creates that. And so we're exploring, being able to turn that on. It's one of those things that we're looking at the different Zoom options and seeing which ones we can allow people to choose what they would like to be able to do, and that could be one of those. So it's just a consideration in there, but yeah, it's a bit more secure than that. It's if we had a system where that bot could work, that means that anyone could join the meeting pretty easily, and so that's where we draw the line to try to make it a bit more secure. So sorry about that. Can't use that fancy new service. Okay. Marley, in order for attendees to see the speaker page, do I need to create a speaker button on the dashboard in the classic template? In the classic template, you do. So let's have a look. Classic template is what we're on now for our event here. And yes, so on you would have seen on some of the other templates there might be a menu at the top, and you can see different options there. There is this menu, right? This sidebar menu that would have it in there. If the speaker page is enabled, then it would show that there, but that not everyone's going to see that, right? Not everyone's going to see that side menu. And so anywhere that you can create buttons.
Meeting participants.
What? Someone listening to the live stream. Who was that? Anyway, you can make a new button. You can call it whatever you want, as in probably speakers. And then link and speakers. And that will link to the speakers page. And now we have a big speakers button. So you could do it there. You can, anywhere you can create a button, you could create that link. So yes, on the classic, you need to create that somewhere. Hopefully that answers that. Cool. Back to some questions. Irene's got another question. Is there any way to delete recorded videos in Obvio, or do they just have to be there in the recording sections until they are automatically deleted? Yes, there's no way to delete those. So there's a timeout on those, and they'll eventually time out. Generally, the best practice we say for people is to make sure you just go and download all of your recordings and make sure you have them all there. I know for people that are reusing their events or reusing those rooms, then you'll start to see lots of recordings there. One thing you can do is you can delete a room, which is a bit more of a drastic approach, which would delete everything, and you would lose all access to those recordings. So But yeah, I guess sometimes you have those little test ones. You've got a 5-minute recording there from a test you did or something, and you like to get rid of those. But yeah, we
I just
tend
don't
to,
like clutter, and I have tons of videos. I use Obvio for my regular ongoing classes, and some of them I just don't need anymore, and it's a lot. So I was thinking.
right.
And
Yeah.
sometimes it's a confidential session. I just want it not to be there.
Yeah, so if and so, but you still wanted it recorded once? Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
that
I
makes,
then I post it on my learning platform. There is another one.
I see. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I do my sessions are confidential with people. So
That makes sense. And look, it is the access to those recordings is as secure as how many people you've given access
right.
to your team. And so if they haven't got access to the recordings, then it's highly secure.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. All right. Marley is asking, how early or late should I ask my client for an attendee list before the event? When I import, will they get a welcome message or purchase confirmation, or can I disable? Also, is adding an Obvio link field all I need to ask my client to make sure they create in their MailChimp prior to import? Did you track that, Blue? No.
No, I was reading something else. Sorry.
No, you're okay. No, I can take it. I just didn't know if you were tracking along. Let's break it down, Molly. So, how early or late should I ask for an attendee list before the event? When I import, will they get a welcome message? So the first thing is to think, how early do you want your attendees to be able to access the dashboard, right? And how important is that? Nothing at all. Just get them straight in there. Okay. The welcome message can be enabled and disabled. The welcome broadcast is set so that whenever an attendee is created, it's going to send that email if it's enabled, right? And if it's created through any of the integrations, it's manually created by adding an attendee, or it's added by an import. Any way that attendee, when it first gets created, that's when the welcome message will get sent out if you've enabled it. It's really handy, particularly if you're doing those kind of last minute ones, or you're, kind of going right up to the, last minute to getting all of your attendees in. So it's all about, you could totally do an import 5 minutes before doors. I mean, you wouldn't recommend it, but you could do it that way. And they would get a welcome message if you enable it, and away it goes. I guess best practice would be something like the day before, and you're doing your import and you're seeing all of your attendees in the list. You haven't got the welcome message, welcome broadcast turned on. You've got all your attendees sitting in there, and then you schedule a broadcast at the exact time that you want it to go out. And then you might enable the welcome broadcast for those last minute ones, for the ones the next day, and you do it that way. So you use a combination of the both, and now you're managing that well. So you've got a little bit of a double up in talking about MailChimp and the welcome broadcast, right? So MailChimp, the big advantage, I guess, of using MailChimp would be to use MailChimp to send out all of your login emails, right, with the magic link. You just have to think about whether perhaps you're using MailChimp more as a CRM, like that's where their list is. That's who is going to attend this event. So in that sense, you could be just doing an import from MailChimp and not necessarily being worried about syncing back to MailChimp the login magic link. So do you intend to use Obvio Broadcast or MailChimp? You can nod. You can put more food in your mouth before you answer.
My Cuban coffee over here. So thank you for that, because this is for a client event and they use MailChimp, and I'm a little bit afraid of like the whole zapping situation. Since I'm kind of new at this, I feel more comfortable with like them handling their MailChimp, their pre-event communication, and giving me their list so that I can import it. And then, like you said, schedule like a broadcast email with the magic link in it, because we don't want them to access the dashboard like in advance or like nothing like that. I don't think she's going to be doing tech either. So then there's no need for that attendee magic link and zapping situation.
Yeah.
But for any last minute people, I would, right? Like if people, I don't know, register like the day before, then I would need to create a zap, right, between MailChimp and Obvio with the magic link situation, or no?
Okay, so we'll just get our terminology lined up. So we have a direct integration with MailChimp that doesn't require Zapier. And now we've kind of got this verb that we're using with Zap that's kind of tied to Zapier, but we're kind of using it, in more of a broader sense across multiple integrations, right? Which is, I think, how you're using it. But Zap is particularly tied to Zapier and is that glue that ties other services together. With MailChimp, you don't need to use Zapier, and you can go direct. And the way that will then work is that all you're doing is tying your event to a list within MailChimp, and you don't have to tag back. You don't have to send back to it. You could, but having used MailChimp, because I had to before we had our own email broadcaster, our broadcaster is way easier than MailChimp to get some of this stuff going up and getting the campaigns going, and trying to do an automated welcome thing in MailChimp is a 54-step process. So it's way easier to do that in Obvio, but you certainly can just set up that integration, and it really is quite simple, because it'll just ask you to, in the services, MailChimp, log in. It'll log into MailChimp, ties the connection together, and then it'll ask you which list do you want to be syncing with. And so MailChimp has a bunch of lists, might only have one, and then you'll hit that list, and then that will from that point be syncing those as new subscribers in MailChimp appear in MailChimp. They will then go back to into Obvio. The second step of that, which sounds like you don't need, is that you can then say, what is the field in MailChimp that I want to populate my magic link? And you can even generate it within Obvio, and you can say, this is the one I want. I want to call it login URL or something. And now it does a round trip, right? So then it would go, a new subscriber has just come into MailChimp, sends it to Obvio. Obvio sends back and populates the custom field within MailChimp, so that then you can send campaigns in MailChimp and have the login link. However, you don't have to do that round trip. You can just do the one-way thing. One way from MailChimp into Obvio, creates the attendee, and you have welcome broadcast turned on, and now they get it. And so it would just be that timeline that you work on. You can set up that import. Remember also, you could totally just do an export from MailChimp in CSV, tweak that a little bit, make sure it's first name, last name, email, and then import that into Obvio. And that could be another way of getting them all in. And then just have the integration for those last minute subscribers that come through. So there's a few different ways of doing that.
Super grateful. That clarifies it a lot for me. Thank you.
Great, no worries. And remember, we're live streaming on YouTube. You can go back to this recording and go back and listen to it if I said it too fast or something. So,
Britt, can I ask a quick
yes, Nancy,
question?
you
Is
may.
that the same process? Thank you. Is that the same process I would use with an integration to Kajabi?
Kajabi would require Zapier. And so it's a similar thing. It's just that you've got another server sitting in between, right? And so what we're doing is we're setting up a Zap, and we're tying in a Zapier integration. So it says, okay, a trigger would be a new, I don't know the terminology with Kajabi, but a new subscriber, a new attendee, I don't know what the term is, right? A new customer, whatever it is. That would be the trigger in Zapier. It says, okay, I've got a new person. Zapier says, okay, got a new person. Now I'm going to send that to Obvio, and Obvio is going to send me back a login URL. And now I'm going to send that to Kajabi into a custom field so that I can do broadcasts from Kajabi.
Does that have to happen right at sign up?
Yeah,
Yes,
it does.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
so
that's
the trigger,
the trigger.
Yeah, the trigger inside of Kajabi is generally a new form purchased. Although you could have the trigger be, I'm just kind of looking inside of Zapier because every platform is a little different, right? But with Kajabi, you have new form purchase, new purchase, tag added, tag removed. So if you've already started, which I'm guessing based on the reaction that you had when we told you yes, is that you have already started, Nancy.
I haven't started marketing, but I had someone sign up last night, which is a yay, but now I'm like, oh God. And last
I
time,
mean, one person is not a big deal. You can just do that manually, right? Like you can log into your Obvio event, add the person manually, copy their login URL, go into Kajabi and paste their login URL into a field in Kajabi, right? So like that only happened to one person, like that's not a big deal. But really what it comes down to in the end is, are you going to be sending your marketing, sorry, I was looking at the Kajabi integration while Grant was talking, so I didn't hear if he told you, if you guys talked about whether or not you're going to be sending emails from Kajabi or from Obvio.
so I would like to use the SMS feature. I've been talking to Tom in the Exper event about possibly it. This sounds kind of convoluted, but the first emails are going out from Kajabi, but there's no capacity to do the backing up from the event to lead into the event from Kajabi, if that makes any sense. I can go forward, but I can't sort of reverse engineer from the date backwards in Kajabi that I've been able to find. And I know that I can do that with Obvio. So yes, it makes your eyes hurt, doesn't it?
No, I'm not. I'm trying to decide what you mean.
Oh, so yes, maybe. I suddenly have a bigger fire under my eyes.
Can you give an example of what it is? Like, give us a time.
What are you trying to back into?
Yeah, what is it that you're trying to achieve?
So I have emails going out as they join in, right? So for however many days right now, it's like 8 emails from me after they join. But if they start joining later, he said that I need another set of emails that lead into the event, like, hey, we're counting down. It's, 5 days, 4 days, 3 days, like that, with the things that they're going to need for the event, because mine's real specific and people need to be kind of like, reminded about it. So, but we don't want them to cross. And
as in, you don't want them to
overlap of those emails, because if somebody joins on 5 days out from swag, they're going to get like a weird gumbo of emails all at once.
So I think the thing is that you're talking about two different styles of email broadcasts, right? And because you can schedule an event. So let's think about in reference to your event is the anchor
Right.
or the trigger almost, versus what you're talking about with having someone where their sign up is the trigger. And so
Yeah.
do you get what I'm saying? So I can see in email marketing where you might say, okay, this person joined, and then one day later, I want to send them an email to say, it's been 24 hours, right? Which is trickier. That's trickier when you're talking about an event. But with what you're talking about with an event where it's 5 days out, 3 days out, they are just simple scheduled emails.
Okay.
And they will just go out to whoever. And now that can be done in either Kajabi or Obvio, because what you're
Okay.
saying is I want the email to go out at noon, 5 days before the show, and it's now 5 days, and whoever has signed up at that point is now going to receive that one because it's
Okay.
now 5 days out. It doesn't matter when they signed up. They could have signed up 8 days out or 6 days out. They're both going to get the that day 5 one, or 5 days out. They're not going to then automatically receive the 8 days out and the 6 days out, right? They're only going to get the one that's scheduled.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Free coffee brain is still
Yeah,
not
no,
working.
no.
But no, it does. It's and I don't know why we were talking about that with an experiment, but that was kind of, I don't know. But yeah, that makes more sense.
It's straightforward scheduling. This stuff is not it's not straightforward. It's complex, right? And then we tie in all these different services and different names. Hey Muddy,
Cool.
you want to chime in?
Yeah, I was watching the live stream, but wanted to jump in for this one, Nancy, because there is a time-based function in Kajabi. It's called an event in Kajabi. And so it links to a time and date, and then allows you to go backwards and forwards, actually, 1 day after the event, 2 days after the event, or 3 days or 4 days. But because you know the event date, what Grant is talking about, that you can schedule broadcasts, based on that. But if you need something that's more dynamic or repeatable, you subscribe them to an event in Kajabi, and then within the event settings, you can schedule a bunch of emails for that. So, cool. Thanks.
Does that answer all of your questions, though, Nancy? What? It does for the moment. Give me half an hour and I'll come up with some more. Fair enough. All right, I'm glad. All right. So Jenny has been very patient. Well done. Look at you. Are you frozen? Oh no, you're not frozen. Wow. For those playing at home, we generally try to take Obvio questions first, specifically, and then we were talking about digital events in general and what you might be battling there. And then we tend to end these calls with production questions. And so Jenny has a few production questions. You've got a few there. Do you want to say what's on the top of your mind, Jenny?
Well, unfortunately, I thought I had the cables that Blue had instructed me with his great instruction last week, which was greatly appreciated. Thank you, Blue. But apparently the young man sold me the wrong cable. So when I got brave yesterday and was going to do my live video before yesterday's session, I couldn't get everything hooked up. So, and when I hooked the HDMI cable from the computer into the ATEM for like this morning's meeting, I have no sound. And I didn't know if there was something I'm supposed to, I had to unplug it so I could hear you. And so, so the cable and this cable, that he gave me, I assume this is the wrong cable. It's not the HDMI-C cable.
So remind me what the camera is that we're trying to plug into.
Yes, thank you, Blue. And I appreciate it, you being so patient.
No, it's okay.
It's the Sony ZVE 10.
Okay. So the HDMI cable that you have looks like a mini HDMI cable. Yeah. The HDMI cable that you have in that box looks like a mini HDMI cable, and what you need is a micro HDMI cable. So that's part one. That should be an easy fix. Take the box back to wherever you bought it, throw it at the kid who sold it to you, and get the right box. Make sure you hit him in the head.
I won't do that.
Make sure you hit him in the head when you do that.
No,
no.
I have to be sweet.
Sure. So hit him softly in the head. Then so that's number one. So it's an HDMI micro cable that you need for that ZVE 10. And it's very similar to how the cable that you have has a regular HDMI port on one, or connection on one side, and a slightly smaller, weird looking connection on the other. The micro cable is going to be the same. It's going to have that same regular HDMI cable on one side, and then a really small HDMI port on the other. And honestly, what I'd recommend, Jenny, is take the camera with you.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, and just say, see this port? That's what it needs to connect to. I believe it's called a micro HDMI cable, and any Best Buy or electronic shop should have something like that. That box looked like it's an Insignia, which probably you bought at Best Buy. So yeah, so you should be able to. Best Buy will have a micro cable for you, or should have a micro cable. From there, the cable that you want to connect to your computer is the USB-C.
Okay.
Okay. Grant, do you remember? I know there's USB-C is such a fucked up format. There's like,
clean show, but
yeah, but when it comes to USB-C, honestly, when it comes to USB-C, that is a clean word for it. Which I know there's like USB-C 3, or
there's all sorts,
1.8 and whatever. What do you remember what the minimum requirement is for the ATEMs?
It is actually USB 2, and so it's not there's not a big requirement. Like it goes back to USB 2.
So to work with pretty much any USB.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Just needs to be a decent. But the main thing is that you can also get USB-C cables that are power only, so that's helpful, right? And so then that has no data in it at all. And the way you normally know that they're power only is they're really cheap. And so you don't want to get a really cheap one. If you're buying something from Best Buy, then you're fine. But if you're going to you're going to do a Dollar Tree or something, that's when you're gonna hit into a problem. So.
And for the setup that I gave you last week, we didn't actually have an HDMI cable going from the computer to the ATEM Mini. So don't plug that in.
I did that. Okay.
Okay.
Oops.
And I'll tell you, like, if you want to know what's happening there and why you didn't have audio, I'm happy to tell you. But that shouldn't be part of your basic setup. Like, just to get the ATEM up and running, you want camera plugged into ATEM with that micro HDMI cable. And then you want the ATEM plugged into your computer with the USB-C cable. And then you want the power connection plugged into the ATEM. So that'll give you just the basics. We're not going for fancy. We want to just get the video signal from your camera into Zoom. You don't need the HDMI cable going from your computer to the ATEM is going to confuse a number of things. Not the least of which is the audio system on your computer is going to get confused by that connection.
Blue, I couldn't write fast enough, so I apologize. Camera this is for the USB-C. It goes in the camera to the ATEM.
Nope.
No, okay. I knew I missed something there. All right.
But this is
Hold on,
recorded.
I'll put it in the chat.
Oh wait, USB-C to the. Okay, I've got written down from last week the USB-C to the ATEM and then the computer.
Correct.
So I must have messed something up. I apologize. If Muddy was
Here.
just local.
Here, I just posted in the chat for you from the ZVE10 to the ATEM, the cable is the HDMI micro. From the ATEM to the computer, the cable is the USB-C.
Okay. All right.
And I've found the Best Buy ones, those two links, so the micro HDMI and a USB-C cable from Best Buy. You could take those links down.
So if I want to hook up my big screens that I purchased, how do I add those in? And then how do I add in? I just wanted to be able to have a camera and just use my phone, which is super cheap, on me, to be able to switch between that and the camera on my work. So what do I need to hook that up, please?
Okay, so first question is, what do you want to display on the television?
On the well, they're not television, they're screens, computer
Whatever.
screens.
Sure.
Okay, sorry, I didn't know if there was a difference.
Not really. And there is, but it does not really. For what we're talking about, there's no difference.
So I would like to right now, I would just like to be able to see the chat because I'm half blind and I can't see it on the computer without leaning in. So I'd like to be able to throw my chat up.
Yep.
So let's just start with that.
So then what you're gonna want to do is you're gonna need an HDMI cable that goes from your computer to the screen.
Okay.
And what's going to happen on your computer, remind me, you're a Mac user, right?
No,
Okay, that's
I'm
fine.
a
So you're a
video.
PC user.
Yes,
So
sir.
when you plug in your PC, you're going to have the option. Well, I don't remember how PCs work, to be honest with you. In the moment that you plug it in, I believe the PC asks you, do you want to mirror your display or do you want to have what's called an extended desktop? And that's up to duplicate. Yeah, that's up to you. Like if you want your computer monitor, like on your laptop, to be the exact same as what's on the screen, or if you want them to be different. And there's no, right or wrong answer there. But extended desktop will give you two screens that your computer has. And then what you can do is you can move the chat window with your mouse from one screen to the other. Or if you just duplicate it, whatever you see on your computer monitor, like on your laptop monitor, you'll also see on the big screen. And that may be easiest for you just as a starting point.
Yeah. Have you used multiple screens before off of a laptop? Or?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
No, not off of a laptop. I've used them
computer.
From a desktop. I've used multiple screens.
It's the same. Yeah, it's the same concept, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's how you would do that part. What was the second part of it? The second question seemed more complicated, where you wanted to use your iPhone as a camera?
I'm not allowed nice things. So I have a cheap phone.
I totally get that. So what do you have in your phone?
It's just a Samsung, and I didn't know is the computer camera that I'm pointing at, will that stay on and that will focus on me? And then
Aren't
I'll
we trying to
switch
get
to
your?
the ATEM.
Yeah, no, it's not, because you're trying to get the Sony camera as your camera. That's what
Yes,
the
I
ATEM.
want the Sony camera as my camera on my work, but I wanted to be able to switch between my work and a picture of me where it's like a split screen. Is that another call for next week?
Well, no, I'm more concerned about the fact that it's probably you don't have the equipment to do that.
Oh, okay. I don't want to
and
buy anymore.
Then you don't have the equipment to do that.
Darn. So I don't have the equipment to be
I
able to
mean,
do
I
a
mean, listen
selfie.
here. Actually, that's hold on one second.
Yeah, I was
You
gonna get you.
could
Clarify that.
just switch back and forth between the camera that's active. It's clunky. That's all. So I'll tell you the right way to do what you're asking me based on the direction that you've started to go with the gear that you've purchased is to buy a second ZVE10 and plug that into the ATEM Mini and have one camera pointed at you, one camera pointed at your work. That's the right way to do it based on what the direction that you've started to go.
Okay.
With that being said, if you don't want to buy another ZVE10, then you could have inside of once you plug in the Blackmagic device, when you click on the up arrow next to the video button, you'll see multiple cameras, and one of them will be your laptop's camera, and one of them will be your Blackmagic device. And you could just switch back and forth manually inside of Zoom between those two cameras. And that will technically work.
Okay. So I can't, until I have a second camera, an actual individual camera, I can't do a split screen.
Not easily. No.
Okay. All right. Well, it's something to work up to.
Didn't you have another camera? You had an older camera or something? A camcorder or something?
Yes, I have an old camcorder, but it's 20 years old. It's not able to be able to go.
Doesn't have
live.
HDMI out.
No, no, it doesn't even know what an HDMI is. And
have you been talking to it?
I talk to a lot of things. I thought I could accomplish it using a cell phone. And so apparently it's like as Blue says, it's clunky. It's not really doable.
Like lots of things, it's slightly easier to do that with an iPhone than it is with a Samsung. But there is ways of doing it with Samsung and getting sort of an HDMI out of that.
Can I be blunt and honest? Is it possible? Do you mind if I'm just honest with you, Jenny? Just in this moment.
Why stop now?
Sure, don't make me cry.
I'm marginally concerned that if we try to do some of the more advanced, what's interesting is the easiest way to do this is to just get another camera. That's going to be easy, right? Because you're going to plug it into the ATEM and you're going to switch between number 1 and number 2 on the ATEM, and that's easy, right?
Okay.
But if we start talking about some of the more, what I'll just call hacky ways to bring a cell phone camera and mix it with a ZVE10 or mix it with the laptop camera, there are ways to do that, but they're kind of hacky. They're not terribly reliable. And I think oddly enough, even though it's just the shit you already have, sorry, Clean Show, I know, it's that it's probably technically more complicated and more difficult to do that, right? Because of the fact that it's kind of hacky and you're using you would be using in some cases, you may have to, download a piece of software to get the Samsung phone to work with your laptop. And then you have to
Right.
get that software loaded on the Samsung phone. And then you have to make sure that the Samsung, and this is true on an iPhone too, so it's not a result of your Samsung. Then you have to make sure that the phone and the computer are on the same wireless network. And are we going to go wireless, or do we want to go with like a hardwire connection? And then do we have enough ports on the computer? Like there's just a lot of things that are kind of barriers to do it the wrong way, right? Or the difficult way versus the easy way. And that, like I said, the easy way and the right way based on how you've kind of gone is just to get another camera. And it doesn't need to be a brand new camera. You could go onto eBay and find a used camera that has an HDMI port, right? Like you could go get a, right. So you can find another used ZVE10 for, you know, I don't know what they cost, but I would think, you know, somewhere around $500. And that's probably, while you may not love the idea of spending a lot more money or spending more money, that purchase of the second camera is going to make your life monumentally easier moving forward.
Okay. You had mentioned the cameras that move with you on the computer. I think it was Grant that talked about it, the one that he liked a lot. Because this camera it's pricey. Does it have to be that camera, or can it be something less expensive?
It just has to be,
'Cause I
if you're gonna pair the camera with the device that you have with the ATEM,
Okay.
right? It needs to be something that has an HDMI out port. And more specifically, it has to have something called an HDMI clean feed, right? So some older cameras that have an HDMI port still won't work. Now, when I say older cameras, I mean cameras that are like 5, 6, 7 years old, right? You're gonna find cameras, especially some of the older Canons, that if you're looking for a used computer or a used camera, you may be like, oh, this has an HDMI port, but it won't work.
Okay.
Because it's not going to give you a clean signal. The USB camera that you're talking about, that's the Link, right? Probably. Yeah.
And you can't use it with the ATEM.
Yeah, that won't work well.
Oh, okay.
With
All right.
Yeah,
I'll just get another camera.
Yeah, the problem is the interesting thing with production is there's kind of two splinters, right? You go down the splinter of using real cameras with HDMI ports and little switchers like the ATEM, or you go a completely different route of using USB cameras and possibly using something like eCam to switch between them. And those two avenues don't like each other very well, right? They don't work great together. You can do it, but again, I think your technical capabilities need to be up there in order to get all those things to play together. And
you've done well. You've done well to go down the ATEM line. Like
I think it's
set you up really well.
Yes, agreed. I'm with Grant 100% on this. I think the ATEM line is the smarter and the easier way to go. And I mean, Grant says this all the time, right? Buy once, cry once, right? So you're not going to be thrilled about having to spend that extra money on the camera, but that camera will probably last you longer than your computer will.
Yeah. Okay. No, I completely thank you. I hear what you're saying. I just thought it would be an easy thing to throw the camera up there, my phone up there and have it as a second camera. But I understand exactly what you're saying. And there is a lesser version of this camera that is for vlogging and that type of thing. And I might be able to, after I get my first few sales, I'll just wait, and I'm going to have to make do. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, was it the ZV1? Is that the lesser version?
Yeah, Yes, the ZV-1 is a lesser version and it's a really good quality camera, but it did not have interchangeable lenses because I do photography. And
But for a second camera, you may not need that, right?
That doesn't.
exactly.
I think the one is more expensive.
Yeah. So the B&H.
This one is the more
I'll tell you
expensive.
right now, like in this moment right now, B&H has a ZV-1 used on sale for $509.
Okay.
A ZV-E1.
Well, I will have to make some sales first, and then I can splurge on a second camera because I have to get a headset microphone first and a remote and all that. So I'm going to have to make do.
Got it.
But thank you for your patience. I know it's a bit grueling with some of my questions.
Yeah. Hey, Grant, what's the ZV-1F? Do you know?
Yeah,
that looks like
that's
it's
what
the
I'm-
cheapest one.
Okay.
I don't know what that is.
I'm looking at a one that was much more expensive than the 10, but
Yeah, the ZV-E1 is I think it's full frame.
yes, there you go.
It is.
And then you have.
And it's a nice little camera. It's a nice little camera. If you're just doing it from above, I can use that one, just use it from above and just use it as a straight down shot. And it's a nice little camera. I just chose the E10 because I have an interchangeable lens and I can put a 30 millimeters lens on it.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just looking at what the cheapest Sony is.
It looks like it's the ZV-1F. It's like the ZV-1F. I don't know what it is.
I don't know what the 1F is.
No, me neither, but it's $498 new. Looks like they have a few of them used for like $420.
Does it have all the cable?
I feel like Muddy is joining us to give us an education on what the ZV-1F is.
Yeah, because I worked with Muddy quite closely on picking camera.
He's been very quiet throughout this whole discussion. He's got quite a lot to speak for.
Probably scared I'm going to message him.
He's probably scared we're all going to message him.
I just came back over from YouTube to jump in to say you do not want the ZV-E1F because it is a fixed focal length, has no zoom capabilities. So you get what you get at like 25 millimeters or something like that.
Well, I mean, like as long as you know what the limitations are, but yeah, I mean, to save $100 to like, spend the extra $100 and get the ZV-1, right? Yeah.
And the E10, it's a sweet little camera. Once I did the learning curve on it, it is a really nice little camera. So if anybody's looking.
Well, and there's no doubt that having like the ultimate is just to have two of those, right? And you'll be super happy. But I mean, I was going to show you. There's a little Sony from Best Buy. You can get a Sony camcorder for a couple $100. Has HDMI out and it'll do what you want it to do.
So I could just use something like that.
You could.
Oh no.
No. You absolutely can. And I've done live streaming and things with little ones like this, and they can be great. But it's going to look really different to your E10.
But but she's using one as an overhead and one as a straight up. They're so completely different angles that it may not matter.
True. Well, I did not expect Blue to support me in this idea.
No, listen, I'm with you. I mean, it's kind of like I've used a GoPro as an off angle shot, and like the color is never going to match, but it doesn't matter because we're not looking at the same shot, right? It's not like you're doing two angles like this.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just very animated when I teach, and so there it is. There's my one smackdown for the day. Good morning, Jenny. So I'm very animated. Obviously, I use my hands for absolutely everything. And so it would be very nice, but that's something I'm just going to have to work up to. And I'm going to take Blue's advice. And I'm just going to need to get those sales happening. And then I will just make do for right now. I was just really wanting to be able to do a split screen. And at the same time, but that's cool. I'm good. I know what I need to do and work up to. I'm cool with that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Grant.
Of course.
Grant, do you think
No.
Denny's going to hate us when we tell her that she should be getting the ATEM Mini Extreme? Do you think
I know.
that's the point where she's literally going to strangle us?
Well, that was a mistake on my part back when I had the funds, because I've run out now, but I got the wrong one. And this is the way I look at it, Blue. So no, I won't strangle you. I already knew I needed the other one, but I'm going to learn how to use this one first. I'm going to get my sales going, and as I won't use the F word that Barry so aptly used yesterday about just doing it. And I'm going to do that. And then I thought I could sell this to somebody else starting out in the LEAP group, that is budgeted like me, that, and sell this, and then I'll upgrade.
Totally.
Hand them your problem.
Grant, you don't get two.
Two? I don't get two. I'm sorry. Sorry.
You don't get two. You get one.
Well, listen, I'm just happy. I'm happier.
It's Irina's turn.
You seem happier this week. It seems like it's more possible.
I'm happier this week. I love it. I love Barry's when she does her marathons, and it's I've got another call with someone that's going to help me with my HT my high ticket offer and all that this morning, and so maybe
Awesome.
So maybe I'm getting out of the weeds a little bit.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
And it's
challenging.
With all of this stuff, you just want to tackle what you can tackle right at the start. You're always going to want more and to do more and to, do different things. But you just want to set yeah, exactly. You want to set yourself up to win, and so people are not going to be, you're prioritizing people being able to see your hands, and that's the most important thing, right? Like for when they're wanting to copy what you're doing, they're not going to care that they can't see you at that point in these early days, right? At some point, you're going to add extra shots and do like a little picture-in-picture or something of your smiling face and whatever, and that's great. But it's not a necessity. It's not. You want to talk about the minimum viable product. What is the bare minimum that you can get away with to just get this thing off the road, up on the road, and have people connect with you on it?
Well, I'm sending, and if you just tell me now if you don't want me to come on Obvio next week, because I'm sending to Blue to request him to do my Obvio page, and that's just going to be a nightmare for y'all. And I have a friend, Blue's shaking his head, and I have a friend that's chiming in that's a lot smarter than I am. That is more, so maybe he can help, but I'm sorry, Blue. I'm just going to preface next week with, I'm sorry.
Well, I love that you're apologizing in advance. No, this is looking up for me.
You can block me, just don't send me the link. So so next week
don't worry about it. Just fire it over.
It's all the Obvio and the Kajabi stuff. So I'm just trying to get filming done right now and be brave, because I have not been brave. It's all
now
good.
I can see. Marley said she's got a ZV one. There's a ZVE one, which is what I was looking at. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's cheaper. And that's where, yeah, it's the full frame one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the ZV one.
You added a letter. I mean, listen, I don't know why you got confused. Sony's naming mechanism is so completely logical and makes
Yeah,
perfect
they've
sense.
made it really easy for everyone.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they've basically become Apple of the early 90s, right? With like 17 million different models that all mean almost the exact same thing.
Yeah, and the only way you knew it was different was by the year, not by the model
Yeah.
number.
Well, I'm purchasing the remote today. So yeah, so I'll be able to have a remote, and so I don't joggle the camera and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, but I thank you all for your patience, and I know I don't say it very often, but it is, man, I have climbed 17,000 foot glaciers and peaked and done all that, and it wasn't as tough as this. So yeah.
I don't doubt it. It's so much of the unknown, and it's the mind battle, right? Like there's just
the learning curve. I mean, there's just everything when that's why I was so down this last month, because I think I'm going to block out a couple of hours to get this done, and it takes me 2 days. And I think I'm going to get that done, and it takes me a week. And then I have to start over because I did it wrong, or it's not what it needs, So it is from somebody coming in with zero contacts, zero background in any of this. It is, And so I apologize for any grumpiness, but I bless you all for your patience, and Blueberry is just, man, what an incredible woman. I mean, the way I felt like she was actually.
Let's not let things get to her head. Sometimes she watches recordings, and just to say she's good is good enough.
She was. I felt like she was actually talking to me yesterday. So
is she in earshot, Blue?
No, she's not.
Okay.
She does have a gift, that's for sure.
Absolutely, she does.
So
well,
thanks, guys.
And together with Blue, they're a dynamic duo.
Well, I can't say the same for Blue. I don't know. It's
this is what happens when you do that. We just mute you, Jenny. That's not right. What's up, Irina? How you doing? You're up next.
I'm dying to chime in because I was in Jenny's shoes last year. As you know, I was asking the same questions. I was bugging you like crazy, and my head was like this big. And I bought all the equipment, and I was sitting thinking I'm so smart. And 8 months, I was very, very lost. And Blue and Grant got it very much because all my questions were like, So then I hired Maddie. In few hours, I was set. And I know now every chord, every port. I'm so excited. I'm learning more and more, but I understand it now. And he saved me so much money because he recommended what's needed and everything right now. I started with one computer, one screen. I have whole studio now, whole studio set up. I could not even imagine that. So just hire somebody, spend that money and be done with it and learn from it and then continue. At least that's my chime. I had to say it because now I'm not lost. I'm so confident about it and it's just amazing. And I continue working with him because I'm moving to the next level. But it's amazing. You will be lost like this with every single thing you will be asking and feeling lost. That's a bad feeling to have. That's all I wanted to say. And he's not local. He helps via Zoom. It's not a problem at all. Or you can hire somebody who is whatever. But Maddie, of course, is the best. Thank you for listening to my TED Talk.
And thanks for that ad break. As we had the ad for Muddy as it comes up regularly. But if you didn't live in the middle of nowhere, Jenny, that may be a little easier too, right? Anyway, Muddy does
I
some
live
great
in the middle
remote.
of nowhere.
You do, Bez?
Yeah, I tell people I live in Atlanta, but I live in the hills of the northeast portion of Georgia.
Gotcha.
But I got decent internet. That was a
Yeah, you do.
requirement.
Yeah, you do. It's good. All right. Any other questions on any of the stuff? I love how we always have people just hanging around. I just enjoy the
Was
tech-
there any updates
babble.
that I missed by any chance?
Actually, we didn't go over any specific updates. So I think it's mostly the same. Few little bug fixes and things here and there, but there's no major features that you haven't heard about. Ah, yes, Tamara. Zoom cuts.
I still need to
Um,
control
Do you know what?
spotlighting and pinning people. It's killing me.
Yeah, and that's fair enough. And I know we've said about Zoom OSC and enterprise plan and all that stuff, and I know that's a bit out of reach, but
I have Zoom OSC. I learned it. I learned Companion.
yeah,
Can't be used
no,
without it.
and I didn't mean technically. I just mean like you're just not ready to dump $5,000 a year on an enterprise plan
No, I
of
don't have it.
Obvio, right? Yep. So that makes sense. No, I know that you've got the technical nous. I think the reality is on how we get Obvio, how we join Obvio calls with Zoom. The thing that's going to happen is when they roll all of the shortcuts into the main app, which is the plan, right? That's what's going to happen. And
Their
then,
timeline and my timeline, though.
yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I have tried a couple of things, because they have got the join by URL, and I've tried a couple of things there, but it's still not quite there.
Yeah.
But
I haven't done a deep dive into Zoom cuts because I spent so much time doing OSC and Companion and all that. And I was like, okay, before I jump into yet another.
Actually, I did remember something, and that is that Zoom cuts. How have I done that? Oh, the shortcuts are already built into the iOS apps, right? So on the phone and on the iPad, shortcuts work with the default Zoom app, which means you could have an iPad, for example, with a whole bunch of shortcuts on it, controlling your Obvio meeting.
I could do that.
And you could do that now.
All right. I'm going to play with that then.
Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Because
you would join as a you could just join as a co-host. You might want to keep your host as a computer and do all of that, and then just have a co-host with video and audio turned off, and all it's doing is being able to spotlight and that sort of stuff.
All right.
You can set shortcuts that specifically spotlight different people, and now you can, so you could play around with that.
Excellent. I'll deep dive into that because that would help for that one meeting for sure. Thank you so much.
Cool. Welcome. I don't think there's any other questions. Lost Irina. Look at that. We're almost exactly to time. It's like we planned it. Great. Okay. Well, if there is nothing else, then we will we will join you. You will join us. We will be together again next week at 5 p.m. Eastern is when it will be next Wednesday. Exactly. Thank you, everyone. You can always email us at help@obv.io if you need any help in between. Otherwise, we'll see you next Wednesday. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.